Hey, what's up everybody? Brady with the now Heartland Geek. I went ahead and renamed it like I mentioned I would in the last video that I did. And it's been a while since videos, so I thought, hey, let's catch up with everybody and let you know what I'm working on. That's probably the biggest update with what I'm doing is changing the name. It was Super Geek News Midwest, and that was a mouthful. It was a lot to write as far as in print too, so I decided, hey, let's switch it up. Let's make it more concise and more streamlined, and I think Heartland Geek more encapsulates what I want to do with this whole process, and I hope you enjoy it. I hope you like the new logo, and soon I will be changing out the website, shifting everything to heartlandgeek.com from supergeeknews.com, and making that switch. So a lot of exciting changes, as always, as this whole thing kind of evolves, and I learn more about kind of what I want to do, how I want to do it, and I hope you enjoy it. Some things I'm going to go over in this video, just real quick, so that way we kind of have an idea of what's coming up. It's been a while since I've done a video, so there's been some recent additions to the collection, so I want to show you some of those. I want to talk about the ICT Con in Wichita that was just held recently in Wichita, so I'll kind of go over that. And also some new books, and usually I'm kind of reluctant on picking up new books, but House of X Powers of 10 has been phenomenal by Jonathan Hickman, and as a guy that grew up a big time X-Men fan, I love it. It's exciting to see other people excited about X-Men again, and it's a long time coming because we forget, before the MCU, before Avengers, before all that, X-Men and Spider-Man were the kings of Marvel. Avengers and all that was actually kind of on the back burner for the most part. So it's exciting to see X-Men getting that respect again, and a big kudos to Jonathan Hickman with what he's doing with this story. So let me talk about ICT Con real quick. There's a lot on the Facebook page that you could check out, a lot of coverage that I did from the ICT Con in Wichita. I talked to the founder of it, Richard Cathy. Great interview that I did with him, a video interview. I went Facebook Live with him, and unfortunately, whatever small edit I did to the text above the post switched the video to a vertical video, and it zoomed in. It's a real shame. It's an error on Facebook's part. I've been trying to get a hold of Facebook tech support on this to get this video fixed to the right aspect it's supposed to be, and I've had zero luck on them changing that out and fixing it. So hopefully we get that fixed. The audio is still fine, so if you just want to listen to that interview with Richard Cathy, again, the founder of the ICT Con in Wichita, year 4 was this year. I highly recommend it. Also talked with an illustrator, animator from He-Man, Scooby-Doo, Super Friends. That interview is up there on my Facebook page. Also a fan, a movie car fan who has a Bumblebee Camaro from the Transformers films that's actually from GM. This is a factory Bumblebee from GM, and that interview is on the videos of the Facebook Live videos on the Facebook page. So there's a lot to check out from my coverage of the ICT Con in Wichita. Let's get to some of the haul, shall we? I mean, that's what we're really here for. A couple of these I picked up at the ICT Con in Wichita. This one, I'm a big Spider-Man fan, and I really like getting some of these early books. And this cover, the covers were so good, and I really missed the era. Thankfully, in House of X Powers of 10 books, the covers actually do have something to do with the story inside. That's kind of a rare thing anymore. We just get these over-the-top artistic covers, and they're beautiful as far as the modern books that we see, but I do miss the old days of the cover actually having something to do with what's going on in the book, and this one totally follows that. Amazing Spider-Man number 55, Stan Lee, John Romita, senior art, and I just love this cover. It just doesn't get much better than that. Very happy to have this in my collection. Pretty good condition of this copy, and I got a really good deal on it. Really good deal on it. I want to say it's like I paid maybe $35, something like that. Very happy to have this in my collection. Sticking with Spider-Man, Marvel Team Up number 74, Spider-Man and the Not Ready for Prime Time Players. If you are an SNL fan, this is a must-have. Very affordable book. This is a good grade, and I believe I paid $5 for this book. And this is just a couple years after SNL debuted, and there are no reprints of this book. You can't find them. Even in trade paperbacks of Marvel Team Up, you're not going to find this issue because of licensing issues with NBC and Marvel. But I'm glad to have this in my collection. I'm a big SNL fan, especially the classic SNL stuff. You see Belushi there on the cover, Aykroyd, Bill Murray, Gilda. So many of the original not ready for primetime players in this issue, and it's a hilarious read as well. Silver Samurai is the villain, and has to go up against Belushi because Belushi has this ring that's important to Silver Samurai that Belushi gets by mistake in the mail. And this happens during an episode of SNL that Stan Lee is hosting in this issue. So very happy to have this in the collection. And the art on this is done by Bob Hall. And if you've been familiar with Heartland Geek, formerly Super Geek News Midwest, you may remember a video interview I did at the PopCon in Wichita during Riverfest a couple months back. Bob Hall, the co-creator of West Coast Avengers, and he also did the art for this book. And I really wish this book was on my radar at the time because I did find some Bob Hall books, and I had him sign it. This was not on my radar. I wish it was because I totally would have had Bob Hall sign this book. And as an SNL fan, as a Spider-Man fan, I am so happy to have this. And again, very affordable book. You can find this for $10 or lower in a very good grade. All right. Another book that I also picked up at the ICT Con. This is Avengers 223. And as an MCU guy, you got to appreciate this cover. Ant-Man, Hawkeye. I mean, that's great. Love this cover. The story's kind of meh, but just the cover alone is a reason to have this issue. So I love that. Here's a kind of a relatively, I don't know if I even want to say minor key because it's heavily involved in MCU and Infinity War and also Avengers Endgame. But here's the Mighty Thor number 339, and is the first appearance of Stormbreaker. And also the third appearance of Beta Ray Bill. And this is a really cool issue. And it really shows you some differences as far as the origins of Stormbreaker compared to Infinity War. But there are some similar things as far as how Stormbreaker comes to be and how it's molded and how it's created. There's still a lot of similarities between this issue and Infinity War. And it has a really cool splash towards the end of Beta Ray Bill hoisting up Stormbreakers. So really happy to have this minor key in my collection. All right. As far as the old stuff, that's it for the older stuff. New stuff. I was reluctant to get this issue because I worried that this was just too much of a retrend, too gimmicky, but I went ahead and picked it up, and I'm so glad I did because the story is fantastic. The art is great. Absolute Carnage, number 1. This is a variant cover, and I love this cover. And it's a great read. Donny Cates just nails the writing in this. The scripting is fantastic, and what I thought would just be too much of a 90s, over-the-top, maximum Carnage symbiote thing is actually a very good read. I'm excited about the second issue. You got to give this one a chance. Even if you're like me and you're kind of, grew up a 90s kid and got burnt out on all the symbiote stuff, this is a refreshing take on all of it, actually. And again, I love this variant cover. And it is thick. I don't know if you can really tell on this video, but this is like 80 pages. And it's a very good read. And glad to have it. But again, what a cover. All right, let's get to House of X and Powers of 10. Because I love what Jonathan Hickman is doing with X-Men. I mean, we forget that before the MCU, before Avengers, X-Men and Spider-Man they were the kings of Marvel. X-Men was where it was at. The animated series, I loved the animated series, along with Spider-Man animated series, and even DC and Batman the animated series. So X-Men was king to me. And it's been weird over the past, 10, 15 years, basically, that X-Men's really kind of been on the back burner of things. The movies kind of fell off. I love First Class and Days of Future Past, also very good, but the Dark Phoenix movie, not too hot. Age of Apocalypse, or not Age of Apocalypse, excuse me, just X-Men Apocalypse, I thought was actually worse than Dark Phoenix. Dark Phoenix actually had some parts where I was actually okay with it, but the movies had fallen off and everything got in limbo and MCU took over. So it's great that there's excitement about X-Men again. And I'm so happy with what Jonathan Hickman is doing. I mean, this is an epic, epic story. And it's such an exciting launch point for the X-Men that even diehard X-Men fans like me, I don't know where this is going. And that's so much of the fun with it, is trying to figure out where Hickman is really going with this. And I'll just go through what I have. I have them all. House of X #1. I went with just a regular cover here because I think this cover is just brilliant. And as I mentioned before, how refreshing is it to see modern comics with a cover that actually has something to do with the story. We don't see that much anymore. I mean, we see some brilliant, gorgeous covers, but a lot of the time they're just art pieces that have nothing to do with what the story's about. And these House of X Powers of 10 books have that, and I'm so glad to see that. And it's just great what Hickman is doing. Here's Powers of X #1, or excuse me, Powers of 10. Still not getting used to that, but Powers of 10 #1. Love this cover. This is cover A. And yes, I picked up the free Krakoa seeds. Or the bachelor's buttons is what they actually are. But the Krakoa seeds, I picked those up for free because I just had to. And here's the big book that everybody's talking about, which led me to find a back issue key. Now, it was a key. It was a minor key, but now it's turned into a bigger key. This is the book everybody's been talking about. House of X #2. Where Moira McTaggart becomes way more than we ever thought. If you're unfamiliar with Moira McTaggart, she's a longtime fixture of the X-Men books, a longtime human ally to the X-Men, and that's key because the whole thing about X-Men is the conflict between mutants and humans. And Professor X trying to find a peaceful coexistence, Magneto thinking mutants are superior and wanting to wipe out the humans, and of course with House of X Powers of 10, it seems like Professor X is more on Magneto's line of thinking, and they've developed an alliance, and we find out, it's been long enough, I'll just tell you, spoiler alert, give you some time, but we find out that Moira has actually been a mutant this whole time, and her power is the power of reincarnation. She'll die, and then she'll awaken back in the womb, but the kicker is, she remembers everything that's happened in the past. And we learned that Powers of 10 means the 10 lives of Moira McTaggart. And life 11, we're assuming, is the key life where she tries to get all this figured out and tries to stop the inevitable war that wipes out pretty much everybody. And she goes through a lot of different lines of thinking. She goes to Magneto and partners with Magneto after failed attempts to make it all work with Professor X. Then she ends up going and becoming a horseman of apocalypse, thinking that war's inevitable, so I'll go with the strongest to survive, being Apocalypse. And you can see, here she is as the horseman, Apocalypse's horseman right there. And it's one of my favorite pages in this book is where you see her with Apocalypse and one of the lives. This life also fails. Everything still goes to hell, and she ends up dying. Apocalypse even dies in this timeline. And you can see her right there. And I think that's just a cool look. And it inspired me to do a sketch. And I'll just go ahead and show you that now, since I just showed you her as one of the horsemen in this book. It inspired me to do a sketch of that page. So it's with colored pencils. I'm gonna try. I'm just kind of experimenting, trying to get better and better. But I think this turned out decently well. We're just kind of looking at it and sketching it. So I hope you all like that. And it also allowed me, or inspired me, to pick up what was a minor key is now a bigger key because of this House of X, Powers of X story. First appearance of Moira X-Men number 96. I picked this up at the ICT Con in Wichita recently. And it's kind of a spec book for the most part. I think I got this for like $30, I want to say, something like that. And I think it's just going to keep shooting up, though. I think this is a decent spec book. I mean, a lot of it depends what happens with the rest of this House of X, Powers of X, or Powers of 10 story. But glad to have this in the collection. Because no matter what, this is now a bigger key than it ever was. And that's not going to change. The rest of the Hickman books we have here. Well, I guess this will be the latest one, right? Where did it go? Here it is, Powers of X number 2. This is the most recent one. This is a variant cover that I picked up. And I just thought, since we're showing off some new characters, an early cover appearance of a new character, so I thought, it might be a good one to have. So, I love this story. And with some of those sketches, last video, I told you that I submitted some sketches to the county fair. Well, the results are in, and we will show you the results. This is one I did that I showed last video of that iconic Spider-Man No More scene, that panel. This got a red, which I was kind of surprised with. I thought I'd do a little bit better than that, but whatever. It's all subjective. And then this one of Captain America punching Hitler, which I think my Spider-Man one's better than this one, but they disagreed, and we got a blue on this one at the county fair. So representing some geekdom, some Heartland geekdom at a very Heartland County fair in Kansas. So that's what I got. That's the update for tonight. I'll try to do more of these. Be sure to subscribe to this YouTube channel, Heartland Geek on YouTube. Subscribe, give it a like, share this on Facebook as well. And if you have some friends that you know would enjoy this content, that are fellow Heartland Geeks, be sure to send them to this YouTube page. Add some subscribers to this as I trip over my words. But want to get those subscribers up, want to get the likes up, and want to get the likes and follows on the Facebook page as well. So if you know people that are interested in this stuff, tell them about Heartland Geeks. So have a good rest of your evening, afternoon, morning, whenever you're watching this. And till next time, Brady with Heartland Geek. Thanks for watching.